Welcome to Life Black Aspect, your ultimate destination for gripping storytelling. Dive into a world of suspense, drama, and intense emotions as we unravel captivating tales, focusing on wife-cheating horror stories and thrilling narratives that keep you on the edge of your seat. Whether you're here for shocking twists, chilling revelations, or thought-provoking plots, Life Black Aspect is your gateway to unforgettable storytelling experiences. Subscribe now and let the stories take over. Growing up in a household where loyalty was everything, I always believed in the sanctity of hard work and commitment. As the son of a steelworker and a teacher, I saw firsthand the sacrifices my parents made for our family. They taught me that relationships, much like the bridges my father built, required a strong foundation and constant maintenance. When I met Charlene, I thought I had found someone who shared those principles. We fell in love quickly, moved into a modest home, and built a life together. Over time, that life grew, first with our two daughters, then with the business I poured my soul into. It wasn't always easy, but I never doubted the strength of our bond. At least, not until the cracks began to show. I learned through experience that supporting her financially was less of a strain than enduring the alternative. Owning my own company meant that alimony was a certainty if she wasn't working. While my daughters were the most important part of my life, the looming financial burden threatened to limit the time I could spend with them. To make matters worse, there was a possibility she could claim half of my business, leaving me to survive on less than a third of my earnings. I left the lawyer's office feeling defeated. As usual, Charlene was already ahead of me. When I caught up, she said, "I've been doing this for 8 months, and it hasn't hurt us. He's a great lover, just different." She added, "I don't know who I'd choose, but think before you act. Go see a lawyer. If we break up, it'll be hell, and I'll make sure of it." I stared at her, trying to process who she was. This wasn't the woman I had trusted for 14 years. At least I wouldn't have to sneak around anymore. "You'll still get most of my time," she said, "but I won't ignore Jim. I'll figure out a schedule." I got up and left. She followed me to the street, but went quiet when she saw Mrs. Roseman. I smiled and nodded at the elderly woman, but Charlene hissed, "Get over here now," as I walked away. After 2 days away, I came back to find a smug look on Charlene's face. Our daughters, now 13 and 11, were thrilled to see me, and I spent the evening with them. Once they went to bed, Charlene brought me a beer, but I didn't want anything from her anymore. "I'm glad you came to your senses," she said. "We'll live like before, but I'll have dates sometimes. No one will know." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Here's what's happening," I said firmly. "I'm staying until Marissa turns 18. Then I'm gone. Darcy will be fine, and maybe she'll come live with me. Either way, I'm out." I paused before continuing. "I'm done with you. I won't sleep with you again. You've turned into someone else. I'm moving into a spare room, and I'm not talking about this again. I'll have my own life, and if I meet someone, so be it. But you need a job, or Jim better pay your way. The girls will get everything they need, but no more joint accounts." Her face went pale, then turned furious. "You're an A**** hole," she spat. "I still love you, and want to be with you. This is crazy." "Things won't change," she insisted. "They already have," I said. "Now go to bed." She shot back, "If your mistress doesn't work out, you'll be popular at Patterson and Maine. You might want to think about that." Later, I caught her on the phone with her lover. I grabbed the phone and said, "I have your number. I'll get your address, and we'll talk about what we have in common. Don't worry about me hurting you, but you won't want a relationship with her knowing she cheats." I hung up and pocketed the phone. Charlene didn't say a word when the girls walked in and asked what was wrong with the door. "Just moisture," I said. "I'll fix it tomorrow." When the kids left, I stopped Charlene from going to bed. "I'm keeping your phone until tomorrow, and I'll be checking your account. Good night." She hissed, "Good luck." I replied calmly, knowing she had no idea I had already set up a keystroke logger on the computer. Soon, I had access to all her emails, search history, and purchases. Over the last year, Charlene had been careless. Her lover worked for the county as a permit checker, and they met when Charlene went to get a permit to build my workshop, what I considered my man cave. Whenever the estrogen levels at home got too high, I would retreat there to play pool or watch sports. She had to return a few times for follow-ups, which eventually turned into flirting, coffee dates, and lunches. Sometimes she led the way. I locked up all the evidence, sent the files to my office computer, and went to bed. Surprisingly, I slept well. The next morning, I made breakfast while the girls chatted about school and boys. They were obsessed with boy bands, and I barely paid attention. Thankfully, they were still too young for anything serious. Marissa, now 13, was starting to get noticed by boys, so we allowed her to walk with friends under supervision, hoping this would help them avoid doing anything stupid when they were old enough to date. Darcy, or Echo as we called her, was still too young for that, but we ensured she had plenty of supervised social activities through sports, dance, band, and drama. At breakfast, I dropped the first bombshell. Sorry, girls, but I have new responsibilities at work. Mom will be your main driver for now since she's not working. She'll have the time. Charlene tried to argue, but the girls quickly sided with me. They didn't want to ride with their friends, especially after some uncomfortable experiences. Charlene didn't give up easily, but I knew this would become a pattern. Her lover's visits mostly happened during the day, after the girls left for school. If you think this is over, you're wrong, I told Charlene. And it's not a mistake I'm making. Then I added, I've wired the house for sound and video. Get your lover in here, and it'll be online within the hour. She was still talking when I walked out. Later, I watched video footage of her freaking out, searching for hidden cameras. It was entertaining. I also overheard several phone conversations, including one with her lover. He sounded uncomfortable as she vented. He's ruining everything. He canceled all my cards and our bank accounts. Charlene's bank balance had dropped to $280, and the electric bill was due that day. Frustrated, she told her lover, "We may have to go to Plan B." Her lover, however, was hesitant. "If we leave now, we'll be broke, and everyone will know why. Let's take it slow, live in nice houses, and keep this secret a little longer." Charlene wasn't happy with that. "So much for love," she muttered. Later, she tried to make plans to meet him at his place, but he refused, worried about the house being wired. "I believe him," he said. "We can't risk it." When their conversation ended, she sat in silence, looking confused. She had hoped for the perfect life, but reality was quickly catching up. Later, I checked on her and found her at the computer, only to realize I had locked her out. "Fool," she yelled, throwing out every curse she could think of. I decided to tease her. Calling her, I said in an overly sweet tone, "Hi, honey. Having a great day, I see. Your computer's locked up tighter than Fort Knox, and your phone's about to be disconnected. But don't worry, I ordered you a new one. It'll be here tomorrow." "You fool," she screamed again, but I hung up before she could say more. I overheard the rest of the details through the surveillance system my tech-savvy friend had set up while Charlene was with her lover that night. When I handed her a brand-new, top-of-the-line phone the next morning, she smiled, thinking she had won. That smile didn't last long. The next day, I heard her frustration as she tried to use it. The phone had a safety feature for kids, which worked out perfectly for me. She could only call a limited set of numbers: her school, my office, our doctors, her mother, my parents, and emergency services. Any attempt to dial another number would disconnect the call for 30 seconds before rebooting. She discovered this the hard way when she tried calling her lover. As soon as the phone rebooted, I called her. "Hey," I said, enjoying the moment. "Guess you figured out the phone only works with preset numbers. It's hard to reach your sweetheart without a phone or a computer, isn't it?" I paused, then added, "I'd apologize, but unlike you, I don't lie. Here's a suggestion: get a job. You'll need one. You want to shop? Fine. I'll take care of the kids, but you're on your own for everything else. Maybe now you'll finally wear those clothes with the tag still on," I said before hanging up, not giving her a chance to respond. When I got home, the atmosphere was ice cold. Charlene struggled to keep it together around the girls, but once they were asleep, we went to the basement. That's when she exploded, screaming and threatening me. I just smirked. Seeing that anger wasn't working, she quickly switched tactics, breaking into tears. "Please stop being mean," she sobbed. "I didn't do it on purpose. He's just a fling. I'll go back to loving you. It didn't hurt you before, and it won't now. It's only a few hours a week. The rest of the time, I'm all yours. Come to bed with me tonight, and let me prove I still love you." I laughed. I looked online for excuses cheaters use. There's even a book called The Cheater's Handbook with advice on handling affairs. You've used a lot of them. It just happened. It won't affect us. It's only an affair. And the best part? Threatening to destroy my world if I don't agree. She looked conflicted, but before she could respond, I continued. "Let's say I agree to your plan. What do I get? I still pay the bills and do all the work, but now I have to share you with someone else? As a businessman, that's not a good deal. You get to have fun with him, and I just work and wait? That's not happening. Since you've declared an open marriage, I'll be looking too." Her face dropped. "There's a sales rep I've been talking to," I said casually. "She's into fitness and runs marathons. Next time she comes in, I'll ask her to lunch. I'll explain we have an open marriage and that you've had a lover for almost a year now. She seems pretty open-minded." I could tell that jab about her weight stung. After 2 kids, she was a little softer than when we first met, but that was on her. If she got off the couch and went to the gym instead of shopping, maybe things would be different. She looked shocked.
"Why?
Why do you need someone else when I'm right here? I still love you. The thought of you being with someone else hurts me." I responded coolly. "I've been free for 16 years, but..." Finish thinking. "That wasn't enough for you, was it?" I said coldly. "Do you think I was thrilled when I found out you were cheating? There's a name for guys who let their wives have fun with others while they stay faithful, just like there's a name for women who do the same. The Promiscuous Bride Express is officially derailed. Think about that." Without waiting for response, I turned to leave. "I'm going to bed. At least one of us has to work." She hissed something under her breath as I walked away, but I ignored her. I knew I needed a plan before she really tried to ruin my life. That's when I reached out to an old friend, our neighbor's son, Harry. Socially awkward but brilliant with computers, he had been developing video games since he was 14 and had made a fortune by his 30s. Now, he lived in a multi-million-dollar mansion with his wife, June. She was stunning but not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. A few years ago, I had introduced them at one of my parties. That night, Harry had announced his engagement to June, the daughter of one of my biggest clients. She was drop-dead gorgeous but a bit naive. Harry, once a shy and quiet guy, had finally worked up the courage to propose, and their wedding was set for June 17th at Emmanuel Wan Church in Broadville. When he made the announcement, he looked at her with pride, taking her hand as she beamed. Charlene hadn't wasted any time dropping hints about the kind of ring she wanted. The next day, Harry handed her a credit card, and from there, she took full control. They had been together for 8 years, and their daughter, Star, was 7. My girls adored her like a little sister. It wasn't unusual for me to come home and see a Lexus SUV in the driveway, the driver casually chatting with Charlene.
She always smirked when she saw me."
The driver, Shawnana, was a former military woman, tough, attractive, and highly skilled. She held black belts in 3 martial arts and was a top pistol shooter. At one point, she had even worked for me, but I could tell she was getting bored. One day, June dropped by to discuss a social event, but I was in a meeting. Shawnana kept her company, and by the time I finished, I had lost an employee. June had hired her instead. Another win for them. Shawnana never looked back. Shawnana ended up living in a small apartment on Harry and June's estate, separate from their main house. However, everything changed when a hijacker attempted to snatch one of their children. Without hesitation, Shawnana shot the man in the head. The case was quickly covered up, but the intruder had been armed and threatening, so she was let off without charges. From that moment on, she became Star's personal bodyguard. My daughters sometimes vacation with them, but Charlene always found an excuse for us to stay behind. I suspected Harry was surprised by the arrangement, but June wasn't. She seemed distracted whenever I saw her, and at our last party, I caught her in the garden standing too close to another guest. When she saw me, she quickly pulled away. I couldn't be sure if they had been kissing, but I didn't confront her. At events like these, we usually split up to socialize, so I had assumed she was elsewhere. However, after that moment in the garden, she stuck by me for the rest of the night. Later, Harry and I discussed my situation. "What exactly do you want, Jack?" he asked. "I want my girls and my life above all else," I replied. "And I want Charlene to regret what she did. It's over between us, but she doesn't realize it yet. When she does, I want to make sure I'm financially secure." Harry then asked about the house. We had bought it at a steep discount, about 60% of its market value, because its elderly owner had neglected it. Over the years, we invested heavily in restoring it, and now it was worth twice what we had paid. I knew Charlene would fight for it after the divorce. At one point, she had suggested remodeling the basement into a separate apartment with its own wiring and driveway. Her idea was that I could have my own space while still being close to the kids. She believed the arrangement would be an easy sell in court since the girls were involved. Shawnana, however, had a different suggestion.
"I can handle this," she said.
"I'll make their lives miserable for you, no problem." I shook my head. "Let's stick to plan C." Shawnana wasn't thrilled, but agreed. Before leaving, she gave me a warning. "She's got a thing for you now, Jack. Watch out when you're single." I was surprised. I had always liked Shawnana, but I never imagined. I didn't realize Shawnana had feelings for me. Meanwhile, the house was in my name, which worked out in my favor since I was the primary earner. After consulting with contractors and a lawyer, I decided to remodel the basement. I also set up an allowance for Charlene, just enough for her to go out, but not enough for unlimited spending. To gain more control, I took her Mercedes in for repairs and had a GPS system with remote shutdown capabilities installed. Soon, I noticed that Charlene's lunch breaks were getting longer. She would go out with friends, then sneak off to her lover's house for a couple of hours. One day, I tracked her GPS and saw she was headed to his place. Without hesitation, I remotely shut off her car. Panicked, she called me, saying the car wouldn't start. When I asked where she was, she lied, claiming she was across town and had just stopped by a friend's house to pick up a bag from their shopping trip. I let her sweat for a moment, then told her to try starting the car again. She did, but after driving a few blocks, I shut it off once more. By the time she finally made it home, she had figured out what was happening. Later, I recorded a screaming match between Charlene and our daughter, Marissa. Charlene ended up kicking Marissa out of the room, but the damage had already been done. The sight of our daughter's hurt expression affected her. However, it was too late to undo the consequences of her actions. When Charlene asked about the basement, I told her I was setting it up for the girls. She took that to mean I was okay with her affair, but she was mistaken. Around that time, she bought a new phone, which I quickly planted with tracking software. It didn't take long for me to discover that she and her lover were planning to leave their spouses and move into my house, with me footing most of the bills. My actions had thrown off their plans. Charlene became hesitant and wanted to call everything off, fearing I would do something drastic. Her lover dismissed her concerns, but she remained anxious about the potential fallout, especially given his job at the county. She suggested I take a month to think things over while she worked on repairing things with her husband. I decided to use that month to finalize my own plans. I set up a meeting with Fred, the county commission chairman, to discuss relocating my business. I told him that Hanover County had better incentives, which worried him. He didn't want to lose 89 jobs in his district, especially during an election year, Fred couldn't afford a scandal. I told him I was having trouble with zoning and permits and needed his help. Then I dropped the bombshell. "Your zoning manager is sleeping with my wife, and I have proof." Fred looked deflated, knowing this scandal would be a mess. I had video and audio evidence of his employees' behavior with Charlene. I laid out my demands. I wanted the zoning manager's resignation and my remodeling plans approved without interference. Fred agreed, saying he'd look into it. I assured him I'd wait until after the election before taking further action. From that moment on, our relationship was permanently changed. He would dread every time I asked to see him. Yet another relationship ruined because of Charlene. The seminar happened, and I had the contractor handle the paperwork. Construction on the basement started the very next day. Charlene seemed indifferent, likely preoccupied with other concerns. She made an attempt to patch things up, telling me she had been bored, felt unattractive, and was lonely with the kids growing up. She apologized, claiming she had just made a mistake with someone who took advantage of her vulnerability. I responded bluntly, "What happens when the girls leave for college and you're bored again? You could have found purpose, volunteered, joined a book club, or gotten a job. Instead, you chose to cheat. How's that working out for you?" I told her I wouldn't touch her, that our marriage was on life support and doomed to fail. She ran out of the room crying. In the following weeks, Charlene acted like the perfect wife and mother. She cooked, cleaned, and even planned a family trip to Disney. But when it came time for bed, reality hit her hard. I had rented a room with separate beds, making it clear that we wouldn't be sharing one. She began hinting at divorce, and when she did, I handed her the separation papers. I knew a confrontation was coming. To prepare, I picked up the girls early from school and took them to the park. They sensed that something was wrong, but didn't know who was at fault. Gently, I told them that I was moving out. They cried and begged me to stay, but I reassured them that I wasn't going far. I showed them the new apartment I had set up in the basement. It wasn't as nice as their rooms, but it— "Decisions, Mrs. Thompson," the judge said, her voice carrying the weight of years spent presiding over similar cases. "Your actions have consequences, and right now, your children's well-being is my primary concern." Charlene remained silent, her head hanging low. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, realizing that this wasn't going to go the way she had hoped. The judge continued, "Mr. Thompson has provided clear evidence of infidelity, and his actions show that he has prioritized stability for your daughters. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Charlene finally spoke, her voice shaky. I made a mistake. I was lonely. I never meant to hurt my family." The judge sighed and glanced at her notes. "Mrs. Thompson, you didn't just make a mistake. You maintained an affair for 9 months and refused to end it when confronted. Your husband has provided a stable alternative living arrangement to remain close to the children while protecting them from the instability of this situation. Given the circumstances, I see no reason to deny his request for divorce and primary custody." Charlene gasped, her eyes wide with panic. "But, Your Honor," the judge raised a hand, "you'll still have visitation rights, and we will arrange a fair financial settlement, but your husband has demonstrated a well-thought-out plan for the children. Unless you can provide strong evidence that he is unfit, my ruling will stand." Charlene's lawyer whispered something to her, likely advising her to accept the inevitable. She nodded reluctantly, and the judge finalized the divorce proceedings, granting me full custody of our daughters with Charlene having scheduled visitation. As we left the courtroom, Charlene turned to me, her eyes filled with resentment and regret. "I never thought you'd actually go through with this." I met her gaze, calm and firm. "You never thought I'd stand up for myself. That was your mistake." With that, I walked away, ready to start the next chapter of my life, one where I was free from deceit, focused on my daughters, and in control of my own happiness. Even face legal consequences if further complaints surfaced. With his career in ruins, Bob disappeared from the public eye, leaving Charlene with no one to turn to. Meanwhile, our household continued adjusting to the new reality. Though we lived under the same roof, our lives had fully separated, Charlene upstairs, me downstairs. The girls made it clear where their loyalty lay, refusing to let her into my apartment. This upset her, but she had little choice in the matter. One evening, I knocked on her door and asked her to join us for dinner. The girls had cooked, and I wanted them to see that despite our differences, we could still function as a family. Charlene complimented their cooking and helped with the cleanup, and for a brief moment, things felt normal. I even showed her my basement apartment, which had now become a comfortable living space. The girls had adjusted well, inviting their friends over on weekends. As part of my renovations, I built a pool, which quickly made our house a favorite gathering spot for neighborhood kids. Some parents noticed our unusual living arrangement but refrained from commenting, though a few mothers seemed a little too interested in my situation, which annoyed Charlene. One night, after a neighborhood gathering, she confronted me angrily. "What were you thinking? That woman climbed into your lap," she yelled. I remained calm. How embarrassing would it be if your spouse was having an affair and everyone knew about it? "I think that's worse," I replied. Charlene was taken aback, but I enjoyed watching her squirm. After that night, I distanced myself even more, avoiding unnecessary conversations. Still, I kept an eye on her, tracking her activities through her phone and noticing that both of her former lovers had abandoned her. For months, she was alone. It was sad but also strangely amusing. I could hear her crying in her sleep, unaware that I had tapped her phone. One day, a telemarketer called, and she took it as a sign that things were improving between us. She thought it meant I still cared. She didn't realize that the real message was that our marriage was already over. With the election concluded, the new county manager made it his mission to clean up the budget. Bob, the zoning manager who had been involved with Charlene, was quietly let go. The commissioner had seen the video I provided, which captured Bob detailing his disturbing plans for Charlene during their next meeting. Faced with overwhelming evidence, they not only fired him but also ensured he wouldn't receive a recommendation for future employment. He was warned that any further complaints might lead to legal action. Bob vanished from public life, leaving Charlene isolated. I could see the regret in her eyes, but by then, it was far too late. Our marriage had been beyond saving for a long time, and I was finally free. One of them would smirk and say, "Smooth floors, boss?" It became an inside joke around the office, something that helped break the tension during stressful times. Meanwhile, Charlene struggled with the fallout of her actions. She oscillated between anger and guilt, unable to fully grasp the depth of the damage she had caused. One evening, she confronted me, her voice laced with frustration. "Did you have to do that?" she asked, referring to Bob's downfall. I met her gaze calmly. "He should have thought about this before sleeping with you," I said. "And his wife will be fine. She has a good job." Bob's wife, a kind and gentle woman, had been completely blindsided by his betrayal. Seeing how devastated she was, I felt compelled to help. I offered her a job, reassuring her, "It's not your fault he betrayed you, but I feel responsible. If you want to leave town, I can help you. If you want to stay, I'll support you however I can." She was too stunned to respond at first, but 3 days later, she called me. Bob hadn't told her he'd been fired, and when she confronted him, he nearly hit her. In a moment of self-preservation, she threatened to call the police, and he ran. Acting swiftly, she emptied their joint accounts before he could, ensuring their children wouldn't suffer for his mistakes. I promised her that his kids would always have what they needed. Relieved, she asked if my job offer still stood. It did, and she started working for me the following week. She adapted quickly, balancing her responsibilities between the office and remote work so she could be there for her children. My staff noticed the changes in our workplace dynamic. Most expressed sympathy for Bob's wife, but Misty, one of my most outspoken employees, reacted strongly at a company party. She had always disliked Charlene, and after a few drinks, she caused a scene, making it clear how little she thought of my soon-to-be ex-wife. Afterward, I reprimanded Charlene for allowing her personal drama to spill into my business. "Especially since you started your affair with Bob around that time," I reminded her. Surprisingly, she apologized, and Misty begrudgingly accepted it. But later, when it was just the two of us, Misty confided in me. "You're too good for her," she said bluntly. "She was always cruel to women when you weren't around." Then, in a quieter, more dangerous tone, she added, "If you ever need me to handle her, just say the word." She had once worked as a casino dealer, and I had a feeling she'd seen and handled her fair share of trouble. Misty was a confident, stylish redhead, 12 years younger than me, and happily committed to a good man. There was never anything between us beyond mutual respect. In fact, I promised her that when she got married, I'd walk her down the aisle and pay for her honeymoon. One day, While we were alone in the office, I jokingly asked, "So, does the rug match the curtains?" She giggled and shot back, "I prefer smooth floors." We both burst out laughing, and from that day forward, any time I was in a bad mood, someone at the office would smirk and say, "Smooth floors, boss." It became our little inside joke, a reminder not to take life too seriously. As the dust settled from my crumbling marriage, I realized something. I had lost a wife, but I had gained clarity, freedom, and a newfound sense of self-worth. And that, in the end, was more valuable than anything Charlene could have ever taken from me. One of my employees would always try to cheer me up when they noticed I was feeling down. I knew things had gone too far when our 60-year-old secretary cracked a joke about hairy rugs, making me realize just how much my personal life had seeped into the workplace. Meanwhile, Charlene was struggling. She felt completely isolated, without a lover, without a husband, and without any real connections beyond occasional lunches with friends. After I had nearly ruined her best friend's marriage by exposing her affair, even her closest friend refused to talk to her. A month later, Charlene showed up at my door, pleading for a conversation. I let her in and offered her a beer. She looked at it curiously and asked what it was. "A special imported kind," I replied. Then, with a smirk, she asked if I had turned violent. I joked, saying, "I prefer quality over quantity," before adding that the girls mostly drank sodas and fruit juice. She sighed and admitted she had been drinking more wine lately to cope with the loneliness, but was trying to cut back. I asked her why she felt lonely, suggesting that she go out and scratch an itch. She seemed surprised and hesitated before asking if it would bother me. I told her it wouldn't. It hadn't when we were still together. So why should it now? Her expression shifted, and after a pause, she confessed she hadn't been with Bob in a while. Their relationship had ended. I reminded her of all that she had gained when she threatened to take everything from me just so she could continue her affair. She started to cry, but I cut her off sharply. "Stop," I said firmly. Through her tears, she finally admitted what she really wanted me. She missed our family, the closeness, the comfort. She begged for a fresh start. I let her cry on my shoulder, and before she left, she asked for a hug. I gave her one. Later that evening, Marissa and Darcy came downstairs, debating what to have for dinner. After a bit of back and forth, they settled on a Creole dish. I suggested they invite Charlene to join us if she wanted. They argued about it for a moment, but eventually agreed. They went out to get the food and returned not just with dinner, but with a movie for us to watch together in the man cave. I enjoyed my black and blue salad, blackened steak with blue cheese, while the girls sampled a bit of everything, even stealing bites from my plate. Darcy, after much hesitation, finally gathered the courage to try alligator bites, which turned out to be surprisingly good. After dinner, we all settled onto the leather couch, with both girls between us, just like old times. They picked a novel for movie night, and I couldn't stop laughing until Darcy nudged me to quiet down so they could enjoy it. Neither of them saw the ending. They both fell asleep, snuggled up against us. As I glanced over, I noticed Charlene quietly crying, trying not to wake Marissa. We kissed the girls goodnight and sent them to bed. Even Charlene kissed me goodnight before heading upstairs. I remained on the couch, lost in thought. Could I ever trust her again? What if she turned on me once more? Would I be able to handle another betrayal? Sleep soon took over, and by morning, I was still lying there. After a quick shower, I found Charlene and the girls finishing the movie. She was making an effort, cooking my favorite meals and not complaining when I declined some of her invitations. Her relationship with the girls was also improving, especially when school started and she took them shopping. I had given Marissa one of my credit cards, and while Charlene used it frequently, she didn't overspend. She was finally learning to stick to a budget. One day, Charlene approached me with a request.
"I've been thinking," she said.
"I want to get a job or volunteer. If I do, will you watch the girls?" I hugged her, impressed by her decision. She had also been going to the gym, slowly getting back into shape. I supported her progress and even gave her extra money for workout gear and clothes. Eventually, she started volunteering for a major charity, helping organize events like fun runs and galas. For the first few months, these events were mostly on weekends, and sometimes I accompanied her. As the weather cooled, more events moved indoors and became frequent at night. I attended when I could, but balancing work and these events became exhausting, so I cut back to attending only 1 out of 3. Charlene seemed frustrated, so I asked, "How would you feel if I dragged you to work with no sleep?" The next morning, she showed us photos from the events. I didn't think much of it at the time. I trusted her now. The cameras were still in place, but I hadn't checked them in weeks. We were in a better place, or so I thought. We were slowly rebuilding our trust, and I believed Charlene was truly sorry. Then June called and invited us for the weekend. Charlene had a 2-day charity event, so we kissed her goodbye and wished her luck. She declined an invitation to stay with us, saying she would be too tired to drive the extra 35 miles after the event. When we arrived, Harry greeted us with a smirk and called me an idiot when it came to women. He told me that Shauna was upset because I hadn't picked up on the signals she had sent when things went wrong with Charlene. He also didn't understand why I hadn't just let Charlene go. I explained that I stayed with her for the kids, not wanting any scandal if I pursued full custody. Harry asked about Charlene, and I told him things were much better. She was more involved with the girls, volunteering, and getting her finances in order. I hadn't moved back in with her yet, but I had hope for the future. Later, June pulled me aside for a private conversation. She mentioned that she and Harry contributed heavily to charity, especially for tax write-offs, and that Charlene had approached them several times about her new job. Then, June told me about a black-tie charity event they had attended, where they had seen Charlene backstage coordinating as the night was ending. She pulled out her phone and showed me a picture of Charlene in a dress I hadn't seen before, standing next to a man. "David Duncan," June said. "He's wealthy and goes to these events to meet women. He's very good at it. He even tried his tricks on me once or twice, but I wasn't interested." I felt a sinking sensation in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I took advantage of the situation, showed Harry the picture, and we blended into the crowd of 500 guests. Most people were dressed in tuxedos and elegant gowns. As we moved through the event, we managed to capture a few more pictures, some of them a bit inappropriate. "That's why we wanted you here," Harry said. "We didn't want you making the same mistake again." Unlike most people who would stay silent and offer sympathy later, they were real friends, giving me the truth when I needed it most. I nodded, lost in thought. The first betrayal had hurt, but this one, after everything we had been through, this one cut even deeper. Everything cut deep. My marriage was over. I thanked Harry and June before heading to bed, expecting to be up all night. However, the moment my head hit the pillow, I passed out. By 6 a.m., I was awake, contemplating my next move. The divorce was definitely back on. I decided I would call my lawyer on Monday and figure out how to break the news to Charlene and the girls. I planned to stay in the basement until Marissa graduated. Maybe Darcy would move in with me. If Charlene had any sense, she'd agree for the sake of the girls. But knowing her, I wasn't so sure. Time would tell. The next 2 days were spent enjoying time with the girls. Though we joined in on various activities, June had set her mind on horses. They had built a barn filled with 6 gentle nature horses, but Harry soon discovered he was allergic. So June, the girls, Shauna, and I went riding around the neighborhood. For lunch, June had planned a picnic by their pond, which was large enough to be considered a small lake. Harry met us there with fishing rods, and we spent the afternoon practicing catch and release. The base put up a good fight, making the experience even more enjoyable. While fishing, we talked business. I owed everything to Harry and June. My company had started because of them. It all began when June mentioned her struggles with dry skin, and I, a civil engineer, came up with the idea of a special shower wall. It featured pulsating nozzles that washed, massaged, and applied lotion. It turned out to be not only practical, but incredibly pleasant. Women who tried it loved it, and June eagerly shared it with her friends. Word spread quickly, and soon, more people were asking for custom shower walls. Seeing the potential, Harry loaned me money to start a business. I rented a workshop and hired 2 guys, and together, we built and installed custom shower units. The demand skyrocketed. Before long, high-profile clients, including actors and even former first ladies, placed orders. Within 2 years, we expanded to luxury hotels and professional sports teams, designing larger units for locker rooms. Harry and June helped me secure international patents, and when competitors in France and Portugal tried to copy our designs, we sued them, ultimately acquiring their assets. When the time came for my divorce, Harry shielded the business, ensuring that Charlene couldn't claim any part of it. Company from Charlene's influence. I wasn't angry enough to destroy her, but I wasn't going to reward her either. I sold the company to Harry, making a profit while staying on as a manager with a great salary. Everything was transparent, and life moved forward. During the divorce, I offered Charlene 60% of our assets in exchange for waiving alimony and child support. I had already calculated the costs based on my new salary and set aside the necessary amount in an escrow account for the kids' needs. I gave her the house, worth $800,000, with all utilities paid until the girls turned 18, unless she remarried. My lawyer thought I was being too generous, but I told him I was thinking of the kids, not Charlene. He dropped the argument. In the end, she received the house and $2.6 million, a deal hard to refuse. But she did. I watched on security cameras as she opened the papers at the dining room table. The first document was the divorce petition. The second was a picture of her with her new lover. I had left her a note. I was ready to forgive you, Charlene. I thought you had learned your lesson, but I was wrong. I'm offering you a generous deal, and you'll come out ahead. Just sign the papers and we'll move on. No need to fight for custody. Share it until the kids are adults. I'll stay in the apartment until Marissa turns 18 and Darcy can decide where to live. Take the papers to your lawyer and don't make this harder than it needs to be. It won't benefit you to drag this out. Good luck with your future relationships. Just don't use me as a reference. I also sent her the same pictures I had given my lawyer, the ones I had sent to her lover's wife. Be careful. This is an attachment alienation state, and a good lawyer can take most of your settlement. Let's hope she's not too harsh. Charlene begged, pleaded, and begged again, but it wasn't working. Please, Charlene, don't read me excuses from the cheater's handbook. You wanted another man, and you got him. I'm not your backup plan. It's over. Let's not make things harder for the kids. Just sign the papers. A few years from now, when the kids are older, we'll barely see each other, she cried. Then, her sadness turned into anger. Her lawyer, a tough negotiator, advised me to accept the deal and move on. You've got the evidence, and Charlie's been unfaithful twice. This isn't a no-fault state. If you press charges for infidelity, she'll end up with much less. Charlie countersued for mental cruelty, claiming I had affairs with Shawnana and Brenda, Bob's ex-wife. Brenda immediately threatened a defamation lawsuit, while Shawnana took a more direct approach. She showed up at Charlie's door with a warning. It won't be me, Shawnana said, her voice calm but firm. I have some powerful friends who can make your life miserable. You could disappear. Think with your head, not your emotions, Charlie. Visibly shaken, Charlie backed down. One more thing, Shawnana added before leaving. After this is over, I'm going after him. He's everything I want, strong, gentle, and kind. I'll have beautiful children with him and build the life I've always dreamed of. Just so you know. A few weeks later, I was surprised when a woman I didn't recognize showed up at my workplace. She introduced herself as Barbara Duncan. I believe you know my husband, she said. The one who's been having an affair with Charlie. I shook her hand, offering a sympathetic nod. I'm sorry for what's happened, Mrs. Duncan. It's not my fault, and I'm sure it's not yours either. Barbara got straight to the point. I hear you have photos and evidence that could be useful in my divorce. Can you share them with me? Give me your lawyer's name, and I'll send them over. She explained that her husband had emptied their bank accounts, leaving her with barely enough to cover a house and clothes for their son. She wasn't working, and her future looked uncertain. Once again, I found myself cleaning up the mess Charlie had made. I picked up the phone and called John, my lawyer. John, I've got another client for you. Charlie's lover's wife. Give me a time and I'll send her over. And by the way, I'm paying, so give me a discount. Sure thing, John replied. Send her in. I handed Barbara my lawyer's number. Text him when you're free, I said. She looked surprised, but I reassured her. Don't worry, he's good at what he does, and I can afford it. It's the least I can do for you. If you need anything else, just ask. She tried not to cry, but couldn't help it. I handed her a box of tissues and let her get it out. Knowing Brenda was at her place, I figured she'd understand Barbara's pain. I called Brenda and asked her to come to my office. When she arrived, I introduced them. You two have something in common. My wife has been with both of your husbands, I said bluntly. I'll be out for a bit. I left them alone for 15 minutes, giving them a chance to talk. When I returned, I was caught completely off guard. Both women had me sitting on the couch, and then they kissed me. I didn't expect that. Barbara spoke first. I told Brenda what a nice guy you are, and when my divorce is final, I'm coming for you. I was taken aback. You're my hero now, focus, she continued. Barbara needs a job. She's got a degree in international business relations, speaks French, Italian, and German, perfect fit for that marketing position you mentioned. Brenda grinned. You can thank me with a big bonus in my next paycheck. And remember, I'm your chief accountant, so don't even think about lowballing her. Charlie was furious when she found out. Is this revenge? You're treating me like crap while helping these women. I held up my hand. I've reached my limit with you. Charlie snapped. What's your problem? Charlie, shut up. Are you listening? If you don't, this deal is off, and I'll make you fight for every penny, I said coldly. Do you really think when I married you, I expected to end up supporting the women you destroyed? Her face twisted with anger, but I didn't let up. This is on you, and I'm done. Don't talk to me again. If you need something, talk to my lawyer. The girls will tell me if they need anything. She cried again, but I remained firm. The divorce is happening. Before the ink's dry, I'll be moving on. The girls need a good role model, not you. Go ruin some other marriage, and when you're done, send the wrecked women to me. Maybe they can start a support group. I've got plenty of experience. I took a deep breath and looked at her one last time. Goodbye, Charlie. I left without even closing the door. The girls hated the situation. I tried to shield them, but they eventually found out. They didn't see Charlie for 3 weeks until I convinced them to spend a weekend away. She's still your mother. She loves you. I'm sure not seeing you is hurting her. It's going to be tough, but do it for the family, I reasoned. Darcy, looking older than her 11 years, sighed. We'll go, but you're wrong, Papa. She betrayed us. We'll never have the same family again. She hugged me tightly before walking away. Love you, Daddy. When did kids get so wise and world-weary? I might need therapy for all of us. It took 11 months and cost Charlie $600,000 before she finally gave up. Before signing the papers, she asked for an hour. I called her. What could you say that would make a difference? If you're sorry, I accept your apology. Otherwise, sign the papers. I'm done with the drama. Darcy was 12 and a half now, growing into a beautiful young woman. Marissa, almost 15, looked like a model. The pool and man cave party still happened, but Charlie never came. I was still paying for the house until Marissa went to college. I updated the divorce terms. When the time came, the house would be sold and the proceeds split. Charlie would still have enough to live comfortably if she managed her money. Before the ink was even dry on the divorce papers, Brenda, true to her word, came after me. I tried to gently put her off. I'd love to, Brenda, I said, but you work for me. If we don't work out, it could get really awkward. I'll quit, she replied without hesitation. I raised an eyebrow. You'll send your resignation email in about 5 seconds, I teased. She laughed, but she wasn't deterred. You love your job, I continued, and no one will pay you as well as I do. Brenda smirked. I could marry a banker. I shot back. You could, but that might take a while if it happens at all. Please stop pretending you don't want this, she said, stepping closer. She laughed. I knew she was flying to France the next day. Maybe you'll meet a Frenchman there. There's a Pierre or Jean-Claude out there looking for you. Brenda found a new guy, another accountant, and they're still keeping track of his performance, tallying how many minutes he lasts and how many peaks he can deliver. So far, it's adding up. Barbara took my offer seriously, found a Frenchman, and moved to Nice to run the European division.
C'est la vie.
I muddled through for about 9 months. I dated a few women I met through friends and events, but other than some physical pleasure, nothing clicked. Harry and Jane looked after me, and I spent time with the girls when I could. Shauna left, saying she loved them, but needed to move on. It was a little disappointing, but the girls just smirked. 13 months after the divorce, Charlie got engaged to a guy she met through her charity work. After her affair came to light, the charity suggested she could be more useful elsewhere, and she took the hint. I met the new guy a few times. He seemed decent, and at least he was single when they met. I didn't know how truthful Charlie had been about her past, but that wasn't my problem. The girls liked him, and he wasn't trying to play dad. Sometimes he took them to the movies while their mom worked, and I was glad to see they were adjusting well. Then one day, the girls came home upset. Josh broke off the engagement.
Why?
I asked. Really, Dad? It's Mom. What do you think happened? I had gotten used to it enough that I didn't get disgusted by Charlie anymore. We could be civil, but I didn't encourage her. I had taken down all the surveillance equipment. It was no longer my business. But when Josh showed up, I almost considered turning it back on. I wondered if she was still making those same faces and noises during intimacy with him. Thankfully, I didn't give in. 17 months after the divorce, I came home to find Shauna sitting on my couch. She had stopped by to see the girls. Marissa, now 16, had just gotten her milestone car, a 4-wheel drive Jeep. She picked it herself, a safer choice than most cars teenage girls wanted. I agreed, even though I suspected it had something to do with Shauna's influence. When Shauna was younger, she had a car just like it. Darcy ran up to me, excitement written all over her face. Daddy, guess what? Shauna wants to take us camping. Can we go? I was surprised. Darcy, the girl who wouldn't think of getting dirty, wanted to camp? Shauna grinned at me, knowing I was confused. You're seriously going camping? I teased. I haven't seen you in almost 2 years, and this is how you come back? Hijack my kids and leave me abandoned. Shauna laughed. You can come too. I'll probably need help managing all the girls. I'm taking Darcy, Marissa, Star, and a couple of their friends, 9 girls, ages 10 to 16. It might be beyond me. I shook my head, smiling. You can handle it. You always did like running a military camp. But sure, I'll help carry stuff and cook. I ordered pizza while they browsed expensive camping gear online. I had a feeling this trip would cost me. Shauna checked in every few days to make sure the girls had everything, even teaching them how to set up tents blindfolded. Star was with her often, already showing signs of being as sharp as her parents and looking like her mother. I hadn't spoken to Charlie in months. She'd been dating other men and sent the girls to my place when she had dates. I wasn't thrilled, but the girls seemed okay with it. One day, Charlie called, wanting to talk about the girls. I knew this wasn't going to be good. She came over and got straight to the point. Stop turning my girls against me. I'm sick of hearing about Shauna. She can do this, she can do that. I had to hold back my anger, but eventually found my voice. I couldn't help but laugh. And this is coming from a woman who's had a parade of lovers these past few months? Do you think they're too stupid to notice? Hypocrite. I paused, then added, You need? I looked at Charlie and said, You need to take care of yourself, Charlie. Get back to the gym, do something with your hair, do it for the girls at least. She shot me a glare and left without another word. As I walked away, Shauna pulled up. The girls ran out, cheering when they saw her. It was amusing to see Charlie's face turn red. Why did you do that? She asked, clearly irritated. I smiled. I've always wanted to, and believe me, it was better than I imagined. Honestly, it felt good to surprise her. As the girls set the table with salads, I prepared the steaks and baked potatoes. After dinner, they rushed inside, leaving me to clean up. I double-checked Shauna's list. How could something this complicated be fun? Shauna loaded Star and her friends into her four-wheeler. Marissa did the same with hers, and Darcy and her friends took their own. It was crowded. I was driving the support truck loaded with gear. Shauna said it would take 4 hours to get there, but it was worth it. We were completely isolated, with the nearest bathhouse 30 minutes away. If anyone needed to go sooner, they'd have to imitate a bear. Shauna took charge, and before long, 4 tents appeared. I was told to store the food in bear-proof containers, which didn't exactly reassure me. The coolers were locked in the cars, and Shauna sprayed bear repellent around the tents and vehicles. Then I assembled the grill. By lunchtime, everything was ready, and the girls were giggling while putting on swimsuits. I drove back to the marina, got the keys for a huge pontoon boat, and had an hour-long briefing. It was designed for 18 adults, so 9 girls and 2 adults wouldn't be a problem. The next morning, Shauna took over breakfast duties, leaving me to chop vegetables for an omelet. She made amazing pancakes with buckwheat flour and fresh blueberries. After breakfast, we all helped clean up and Shauna took the girls fishing. The lake had lots of small bream, so everyone caught something. We took photos, and the girls joked about shopping for gear soon. After lazing around, we went back to the marina for lunch. The girls wore sneakers over their swimsuits, thinking we were going to a restaurant. Oddly, the place served Italian food, and we shared spaghetti, ravioli, and meatballs. Afterward, we admired boats at the pier. The girls squealed when they realized the big boat was for them, but groaned when Shauna made them put on life jackets. "We have a student driver," Shauna joked. "Better safe than sorry." We set off slowly, and I heard Shauna laughing on deck. The girls were relaxed as we anchored in a cove with a shallow beach. The boat had a sliding board, and the girls took turns flying into the water. One girl, Vicky, couldn't swim, but Shauna made sure she had a life jacket and took her into the water. Everyone roasted sausages and marshmallows on the shore, while Shauna quietly talked to Vicky. After a while, I kissed Shauna's cheek. Her smile lit up the evening. "For helping Vicky," I said. "You're going to be an amazing mom." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she swam off to the bay. I helped the girls clean up and made sure the fire was out. We slowly swam back to the dock, and Shauna asked if she had upset me. I told her she hadn't, just that her compliment had taken me by surprise. We had a light dinner, which the girls prepared, and then Shauna and I relaxed in camp chairs, snuggling. She told me about her new job co-owning a security firm. I told her I'd sold my company, which surprised her. "It didn't bother me," I said. "I got into it to help a friend." Harry and June dragged me into it, and while I appreciated the loyalty, it wasn't my passion. I just wanted enough money to provide for my family and later for my girls. Shauna squeezed my hand. "I know you don't show it, but Charlie hurt you." She hesitated before continuing. "I've been there too. My ex-husband left me for a pregnant woman, my supposed friend. At least he waited until I got home, but it still hurt." I was a bit surprised. Shauna had never mentioned her past before, and it made me feel a little sad. Charlie had taught me how to handle pain, so I understood where Shauna was coming from. We relaxed in the chairs until dinner was ready. I was glad my girls knew how to use the grill. Most of the others were clueless. After dinner, Shauna and I did the dishes while the girls sang around the fire. It was peaceful, with no one else around to appreciate their talent. The girls insisted we get a pontoon for combined birthdays, and I didn't argue. That night, as I lay in the tent, I realized I was the happiest I had been in a long time. I fell asleep with a smile. The next morning, we packed up, making sure we left the campground cleaner than we found it. As we drove home, Shauna and I held hands in silence. About an hour from home, she finally broke the quiet. "I've been thinking about this for years," she said, her voice serious. "Here's the deal. You'll marry me, we'll have more kids, and you'll spend your life with me. If you don't want that, I'll leave and you'll never see me again. Oh, and by the way, I love you."
How do you feel about that?
I paused for a moment, pretending to consider it. "Let me think about it," I teased. Shauna gave me a pointed look. "Okay, I've thought about it," I said. "Tomorrow, we'll pick a ring, and you'll go house hunting. I'm not starting married life in my ex's basement." "Oh, and will you marry me?" She waited, then tears started to flow. A smug smile returned as she quickly texted someone. Suddenly, Marissa, who was driving another car behind us, pulled over in shock. Shawnana jumped out, pulled me into a hug, and I saw Marissa's message flash on Shanana's phone. Operation successful. Great job, troops. Oops, you weren't supposed to see that, Marissa said, blushing as she hugged me again. I sighed and closed my computer, realizing today was my 60th birthday, my last day of work. I was retiring, having made good money, and it was time. Darcy was working with Harry, learning the business to eventually take over as CEO. Marissa, an engineer specializing in bridge construction, had found a life partner. Marissa had adopted 2 little girls, my only grandchildren. Darcy was still married to her work, but she seemed close to an engineer she met through her sister. Just then, Shawnana walked in with our twin daughters, who were soon to graduate high school and head to different colleges. She had been right. Our children were beautiful, and they were starting to take their own paths. Shawnana retired on our wedding day to run her company, then sold her share when she found out she was pregnant. My company had grown alongside Harry's empire, and their insights often changed business strategies. Shawnana stopped at our wedding photo, where she and June stood with 9 bridesmaids, all in floor-length dresses and combat boots, holding a sign that read Operation Successful. We were headed home to the lake, where we had spent many vacations. 2 pontoons and a speedboat sat at the dock, and the guys from our trip often visited, talking about Operation Lake. Privacy was a rare commodity, but we were used to it. As for Charlie, the house went to her. She wasn't happy about it, but she soon realized her complaints wouldn't change anything. What really upset her was that Shawnana bought a house just a block away, a $500,000 home with a pool and hot tub, which was even featured in magazines. The first year of custody was easy since the girls lived close, though they preferred staying with us, especially after their sisters were born. Charlie married twice more, but both marriages ended badly. The first fell apart due to cheating, and the second fizzled out after a few years. Brenda and Barb even tracked down her second wife and offered her a job. We still see Charlie occasionally. She's quieter now, still holding on to old resentments. Time hasn't been kind to her, and her habits haven't changed. She still prefers them all to the gym. "Dad, hurry up," one of the girls called. "Dad, hurry up," one of the girls called. "If we leave now, we'll have time to swim at the lake." I grinned, grabbed my box, and walked out with my family, ready to start the next chapter of my life. Like and subscribe my channel Life Black Aspect for more videos.